Thank you for staying with us. So, after several weeks of speculation on the extension of the tenure of former Inspector General of Police, Ibrahim Idris, the President sprung a surprise and announced and confirmed Mr. Mohammed Adamu as acting IGP and decorated him with his new rank.
Well, the new Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Abubakar, has started off warning officers and has identified the absence of transparent, knowledgeable, accountable and motivational leadership as a problem of policing in Nigeria. Now, what tasks does he have ahead of him as he takes over the reins of the Nigeria Police Force? Joining us to discuss this, we have Freddie Adimefe. He is a political candidate of Alliance for New Nigeria, ANN. Good to have you.
Great to be here.
We also have Chukwuma Okenwa, convener, Youth Decide 2019.
Thank you so much.
It's good to have you join us.
Okay, now the new IGP, acting IGP as it were, has taken over the reins of the Nigerian Police Force, and he made mention of something. Of course, he's spoken to Nigerians. In his statement, well, during the handover ceremony, he said, "We are going to build upon the strategies put in place to make sure that we have hitch-free elections in the country." Well, I think he knew that that's one thing that Nigerians would want him to address. And do you think that as it stands now, that he has enough time to put his house in order to effectively police the 2019 election? Let's start with you.
I believe to a very great extent. You see, there is something about the body language of the leader. And according to John Maxwell, everything rises and falls on the leadership. Recall that when the current president took over and the body language suggested no tolerance for misbehavior.
Corruption.
You know, just when you talk about the following week, a visit to the Federal Secretariat, people were reporting to work before 8 o'clock. But over time, you know, that was short-lived. So I believe if the new IGP, because what does it really take to bust the corruption? Just ensure that sincerely you are committed to fighting corruption, and certainly you are going to achieve sustainable results.
But it seems to us that this is nothing new. Every IGP that comes on board talks tough. You know, for former IGP MD Abubakar, it was more of, hey, take off the roadblocks, we're going to do this and that. That worked for a little while, and then what we see is that we go back to status quo. So why should this be different? Why should we be optimistic that this new IGP would be different?
Okay, well, I think for every person that comes on board, it will be nice to, you know, let's keep believing, fresh hope. He has never been an IGP before, right?
Neither
and
has
he's
all
been
the
given
others.
the opportunity, and neither like the others. So for the fact that the others misuse the opportunities does not mean same also will be repeated. So I believe he has a clean slate. And my advice, which I always give, is out of all the policies we can make as a nation, the best of it all is sincerity. Commitment, because sometimes one of the things that make corruption to thrive is a situation where in your own very self, you know, you deny even the very fact that we still have some roadblocks or police officers collecting money and all the rest of it. I always ask this simple question, where you see the first PROs at the state level saying if you see any police collecting any money, report either to us or to the complaints response unit. And you begin to wonder whether these guys fly to the office. They apply through the same route. When they see some of these things, they overlook it. And there are even concerns in some quarters, you know, that, you know, some of those monies pass through the DPO to some of these other stakeholders,
Allegedly.
not at the state level.
Allegedly.
Yes. Let's go to Freddie, actually. I'm still concerned about the timing of his appointment. Of course, we know it's something that we couldn't avoid because definitely the tenure of the former IGP expired and someone had to come in at this time. But then looking at the structure of the Nigerian Police Force, he has to constitute his own cabinet, as it were, at this time. So a lot of politicking, if I should put it that way, is going to play out. And we have an election on our hands. Do we have enough time for him to structure and police the 2019 election?
Frankly speaking, there isn't enough time. And it's not practicable to be able to pull something in 4 weeks. We're talking about 36 states in the country. But like I said, I think it's coming a bit late in the day, but all hope is not lost. In a lot of ways, the police has also been an accessory in rigging elections. And if you want to be able to purify a system, you basically would need to start from somewhere. And I don't think you have 4 weeks to reorientate the people enough for that. We're talking about a policing system here that is underpaid, and where there is great disaffection, and where the process of recruitment is still not standardized. So there is a lot of carnage. It's been decades and decades of wrath. And we cannot fix that in 4 weeks or 5 weeks. Let's not be too optimistic. But I wish him well. What we deserve, what we desire for him is to be able to at least give us a credible, close to credible polls. Ensure that there are no violence at the different points of the polling units. Ensure that at the end of the day, the votes are protected and counted. I think that's what every honest Nigerian would want to see.
Talking about honesty here, I want to take you back to something you said about, him not having enough time. It's not necessarily about time or about the person. Looking at the man's pedigree, if we were to do like a dig up of where he served, what he's done, what he's known for, if you're a straightforward person, do you necessarily need time to say, this is what I want across boards? If anybody is defaulting, defaulters will be made to hang. And hanging here, I'm using the word hang loosely, not necessarily, you know what I mean. So can you not be that person instead of saying, oh, we don't have time to plan, and the police has been overhauled and overhauled and overhauled. We always have those police reforms that only last for a few months, and right after that we go back again to the same thing.
I think in a lot of ways it's a combination of both. The person has to have the political will to drive, but there's also time frame for you to be able to achieve measurable results. Like I said, he has the first and most important task: deliver a credible election. After the election, you have a nation to police, and you have, and that is a bigger issue for us. I think that we've been clamoring for state policing for the longest time. That is almost dead on arrival. The conversations is neither here nor there. But one thing I celebrated in the last few months was the police academy. So for the first time, they've been taking that very seriously, and I think they just graduated the first set a month ago. And just seeing how people are taking through the process of cultural orientation. I mean, a lot of the policemen who you have on the roads today are not trained. So by and large, they may not even know what is wrong or right. They can even go beyond their scope and try to interrogate you for one thing or another. A lot of them have actually been, alleged to have connived with criminals, providing guns and arms. But when you give an armed man who is underpaid, give him arms on the street, you give him the incentive to rob. So I really do think that I personally, if I have a family member who is a police officer, I would be as worried as many people. One, I don't know about the health insurance scheme, if it works. There have been a lot of siphoning of funds with respect to the pension funds, and it's been serious. Every year you have the same thing, this different faces, the same issues. I really want this present one to get back to the table and really get to see the structure of the police. Our policing system, you need to basically unpack it. There are many things that are not done right.
Yeah, it's hydra-headed. But I want to take you on one more thing. You mentioned finances, and this goes for both of you. We know that a lot of money has been earmarked for the police, for the NSCDC, for dogs, for horses, and all those kind of things. But because of the fact that we know that there is some known corruption that is at play in the police force and generally in the country, how certain are we that these monies would get to those people who are on duty, so much so that they would be able to easily turn their eyes or shut their eyes to inducements? Because there have been allegations that during elections at polling units, police officers and sometimes allegedly ad hoc staff of INEC are being financially induced, by some party stalwarts or party officers at those polling units. So if these people's welfare is prioritized, should we not be seeing a lower level of corruption or any election malpractice?
What can answer that question is, what are the, have there been any conviction following other previous electoral cases of inducement and connivance? I don't think there have been any credible or popular conviction that we know. Now, every state, when your institutions are not strong, you cannot fight corruption. It's always going to be dig a hole to fill a hole. So what we're saying that our institutions are still porous and underperforming. We're seeing the CJN and all what is going back and forth, and the arguments are a dime a dozen as to how you approach this. So I would say what we expect is not just about having someone with a strong political will. The institutions that can drive and come alongside that policy, we have no shortage of laws to penalize people, but the implementation and the execution of those laws have been our problem. And when this present administration came to power, our expectations, most of us who voted and supported, was hoping that there will be the political will to strengthen the institutions. Today, the judiciary is still as wonky as it comes. I mean, we're still talking about corruption in the judiciary, in the legislative arm, in the executive arm. It's still the same thing. So until we begin to see high-profile convictions across the sectors, across the spectrum, we will just be crying foul.
Okay, now let's bring Chukwuma into this. Basically, I want to talk about police reforms. Now that we have a new IGP in place, and of course, he said that he will re-strategize on the fight against insecurity and all that. We know that insecurity is a big issue in Nigeria beyond the election. You know, even regular, everyday policing is a challenge. We see that we have soldiers on the streets, and that shouldn't be. So how do we hope for this new IGP to navigate these waters? I think it's a mixed bag of a lot of things.
Yeah.
So how will he be able to, you know, effectively deliver the kind of policing? What should he essentially look at doing at this point?
I think the first task that is before the police boss is to ensure that through the Police Service Commission there is an immediate restructuring of the management team, which constitutes the 4 DIGs that were there before he was promoted from AIG to, of course, the IGP, right? That would be the first thing. Set up the team you can believe in. One thing I understand, you know, even though it said that, institutions are stronger than leadership, and of course, you don't need one man to fix up things, but men build institutions. And let me say something, like sometimes this issue of believing that people actually take bribes because they are low salaried, you understand? It's really very far from it, because sometimes you could even see maybe a DPO who receives maybe over 100,000, and you drop 1,000 before the person, and the person is shaking in excitement and all the rest. So it borders much on the value system. But before then, because there are 2 dimensions to it, you have the values and you have the rules. Now, if the police boss, through his body language, let's start with, okay, you just have the first week. Maybe he moves on the streets of Abuja, driving the night, and we hear over the news that 5 police officers have been dismissed on account of collection. Let's say he just decided and say, this is a new dimension, right? And he wants, and also like sends maybe a special squad that he can believe in. No police officer wants to lose the job. These things can be done because the structure is already there.
The question is, why is it not being done? Because we sound like it's not far-fetched. It's not magic. You don't need a magic wand, but why is it so difficult
you see, one of the
for
things,
these things to get done?
One of the things he just needs to do is to ensure to function based on the provisions.
Is this necessarily about the man at the helm of affairs, or is it? Does it have to do with this, a rot in the system, a systematic problem?
It has to do, yeah, the rot is there. But let me tell you, if you are given all of the powers to maybe contain whatever challenge that exists within a system, you've got no excuses.
Yeah, I think I would like you to talk about how he can restore the confidence of Nigerians in the police force. I think that is a critical issue, because at this point we need to believe that this new leadership is a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, sure.
You know, there's high expectation. How can we keep the ante high?
Yeah, the police at this point truly need to be independent, because over the time, like in recent past, you have like police trying to play like more or less like a partisan platform, right? So the police need to show itself or herself as an independent platform that is professionally inclined.
Can they be independent if it's the executive that is, you know, that has the responsibility of putting the man at the helm of affairs there? I mean, I think that's detail for every security agency in this country. Yeah, the service chiefs are being nominated by the executive, and of course they have to go through some form of screening with the legislature. So there is not necessarily an independence of sorts.
The way it is structured.
Let me say something. The truth of the matter is, before the executive steps in, you have the Police Service Commission. Like, just imagine if you are the president, you don't truly know all of the officers and all the rest. How would you just step into military, step into police, and then pick anybody you like? It's not supposed to work that way. So there is a Police Service Commission that makes recommendations, right? And you also are as the president, you got there. So it's not just, and then if you are non-conferred, because the country does not belong to the president. The president is the #1 citizen, just like also the police service boss is a citizen. So if the constitution powers you and say, okay, as a citizen, you've been committed to operate in this dimension, and you are accountable to the Nigerian state. You should be able to do that without allowing any interference.
Okay, let's bring you in at this point, Freddie. I'm still concerned about restoring confidence in policing, because I think that is where we haven't gotten it all this well. You know, over time, Nigerians, there are lots of issues, extortion, lots of allegations. The police is seen as culpable in many cases. You know, even individuals are getting to the point where police officers are taken to the court, you know, to prosecute a police officer for wrongs, for human rights infringement against Nigerians. So it's about restoring confidence in Nigerians at this time. Oh, that you have a police boss who is overseeing a force that is committed to your welfare. How do we get to that point with this new IGP?
I think that the confidence is achievable, because what we have experienced over time is a mistrust that have over time developed because of the relationship and the events. I see it happening on two fronts. First of all, there has to be a proper cultural orientation for the policemen. I mean, they have to first of all understand that for every Nigerian they meet, they're not all criminals. I mean, in Nigeria here, you are guilty before you're proven innocent. And they approach everyone with that sense of exploitation.
Is it that they're not trained enough?
There is still the problem of training, and there is still the problem of value system and the problem of culture. And I think that they are so volatile and vulnerable that you need to keep having that culture sessions at every point in time. So I think he needs to take that seriously, properly reorientate them to understand that they are meant to protect citizens, not exploit them. There is also the education that has to happen on the side of the general public, because over time that also has suffered in a bit, where a lot of people feel they don't trust the police. I mean, if you're driving at night and a policeman is stopping you, you want to be sure that a policeman is truly stopping you. And I think that also is important. So we have cases where they detain people for more than 24 hours. We have cases where the people are in prison, languishing in jail for, and they've never been to trial. We have all those things happening, and he needs to approach them on both fronts. And I think that the trust will grow over time. But he has to be someone that is able to speak truth and stick to it. Again, because of our nepotism and it runs deep, you have cases where someone who is even a victim, who is also culpable, is actually let off the hook. I don't think any judiciary system or any system of justice that allows the rich to get away and penalize only the poor will only suffer mistrust issues.
Okay, interesting. You raised my last question. We always are quick to pass the buck. Yes, the police has its own issues, but we, the people, also have a role to play, because the police does not get corrupt on its own. People aid and abate this corruption. What do we need to do on our path to help the police do the job of policing the way it should be in this country?
Yeah, interestingly, one of the things I must say, the citizens, of course, have a role to play. And one of those roles would be, the Constitution says, bail is free, right? And we know in most cases, and the one that is even very touching is when you see lawyers go to police station maybe to speak for their clients, and they are begging. You know, when you see such sites, because Nigerians, we don't really love to stand for what we believe in. As part of the thing you can also do as a citizen, when you see a police not operating according to the provisions, right, of the Act, Police Act, you could also report.
How many people know the content of the Police Act?
Yeah, but
just asking.
Not too many persons, but the simple truth is that an average citizen knows that, of course, someone that is out there to protect lives and property ought not to be bullying or to trample upon your right. Nigeria is meant to be a secular and free state. Yeah, people know their right, but they don't exercise their right. The problem in most cases is just like the police force. Beyond the bounds of Nigeria, they perform wonderfully well. When you talk about UN missions, and even in Africa, it's rated as almost about the best, right? In Africa, when you really see Nigerian police, when they want to do their work, you know the training they went for. It's not in vain. But I think the problem is to provide that strong leadership. Leadership is everything. Once, like if the IGP, the current one, right, decide and say, okay, this is going to be my stance on issues of corruption, this is going to be this on issues of politics, we're not going to be partisan in any way. And if you want to be partisan, you could as well go, join a political party. if he's very firm with that, I'm sure a whole lot of things will change.
Freddie.
Okay, what I think that if we as citizens, we want to help the job of the police, I think we must on one level try and do the right thing. I know that for the most part, I try to have all the papers and try to ensure that I have it, because I want to, if they stop me, I want to respectfully say, okay, is there anything else? Okay, I'm fine. So again, Nigerians have a cultural problem of just trying to get away with the system or trying to beat the system. So at every point in time, we must have to do that. There's also a place of patriotism where we know that our country is ours to defend. Now, there is a major problem in fighting crime in Nigeria: data. I mean, someone can kill someone in Lagos, relocate to Kano, live happily ever after. And because there is no way of tracking things, our data collection and data harnessing is still very poor. So, but we have data. As a citizen, if I have something that can be vital to the police, is there a way that I can channel that in the way that can help their case, but not also endanger my family? I mean, that's something to think about. The data process is still very weak, so we have to be able to organize a system where we can contribute to sourcing for data. When you see any suspicious case that raises concern, you have the responsibility. It's your civic responsibility to lend your voice, to speak and help them in any way you can.
But how do you protect yourself? Because I've had many cases, several cases of people who go to report or have information for the police, and then that information finds its way back to them, or whoever they reported find out that they're the ones. A lady's child was molested sexually by her landlord, and they took the case to the police station and reported to the DPO in that area. A few weeks later, she was getting threat messages from the people who she reported to, because her number somewhat left the DPO's phone, allegedly, to the people who perpetrated these acts of violence. So again, a lot of people would tell you, if you do a poll now, they say, I better go, I'd rather just walk on by because I don't want,
That's still about confidence.
Exactly.
It's
So
still confidence.
what does the police need to do?
Right now, we may not necessarily, I don't think that most Nigerians will be comfortable coming forth, but I think that there is a way you can create an anonymous system where you can filter that information without giving away the person. And we must create that opportunity. Technology is there. With technology, you can basically access information, contribute information, and still be protected. And we have to look at that very strongly.
Okay, just before we round off the session, there was this case about a drunken police officer, who was caught on camera, and the video was all over the internet. Things like that, misconduct by police officers. How does the new, the acting IGP address some of these small issues, that Nigerians have with how policemen actually display,
Conduct themselves, yeah.
yes,
No, but they have their penalties for every misdemeanor.
Yes.
And I think he just has to enforce it. Like I said, there's an enforcement problem here.
Yeah.
But again, there's a carrot and a stick. I want to see them reward excellent policemen, not just punish the bad ones. And if we have that approach, you might find more people being motivated to do good.
Wow. And of course, we know that there's this over 10,000 jobs or so that we advertised positions in the police force recently, and we know that lots of Nigerians, over 200,000 Nigerians actually applied for those jobs, and we know that many of them are graduates. The new IGP is actually a graduate of geography. He holds a degree, so I'm sure that one of the things that we should be talking about is how to get more people who are well-read into the force. So how does he achieve this? Because we know we have lots of unemployed Nigerians who are possibly not so well-read that also need jobs. So how does he balance it?
Well, I think one of the things we'll be missing out over the time, even though it should be part of their acts, is to run background checks on potential police officers. For the fact even the person have a HND or a BSc is not enough. It should be people who have worthy character, credible people, who when you check their background, they don't have any track of criminality and all the rest. Because one thing about crime, once you have it in your blood, except God helps you.
But then I thought you have to be tough to be a police officer. How can I be tough and as well?
It's not just all about toughness. I mean, our police, even though some of them see themselves as military.
I think it was Dangote who advertised for a driver's position.
Yes,
and you had over 200,000 people. So we have a unemployment rate of about 40%.
Yeah.
We are dealing with lack of employment and lack of gainful employment. So even if I advertise for a doorkeeper, people will apply. So the question is not the numbers. The question is, how do you sieve? What is the quality you're looking for? The sociology of it, the psychology of it, the mental stability. I don't know that they do mental stability. I mean, mental instability in Nigeria here, it's so rampant, and we don't have a proper process to steward it and proper healing. And most people will spiritualize it. But you have a lot of mentally loose people carrying guns and moving around and pretending. So there is still that aspect where you have to get the right fit. It's not an issue of remuneration, but remuneration is critical. It's important.
So you're advocating for mental health evaluation
Of everyone who goes through that first. It's so critical that we cannot rule that out. In fact, it's the
How often should it be done? At the beginning? In the middle? Should it be done like you know when you have staff and reorientate them and retrain them? Is that what you're asking?
In terms of our population ratio to psychiatrists is radically out of balance. So we really have a tension on our hands when it comes to that. But you cannot give a man who is unstable. You have cases where a policeman will open fire on innocent people, kill them, and it's facing trial. I mean, you can avoid that from the beginning with the recruitment process. The doorway to your force is recruitment, and you want to get that right, because now we're trying to sieve out the bad eggs. But we can reduce and time the flow by, first of all, attacking how they come in. The police force is also a place where they have to spend 3-4 months, and you have to constantly do the psychometric test and check for the characters, because you have an extended period to check these guys and find out those who have the tendency to cheat. I mean, if I have a chance to play a role, that academy has to be rigorous. It's not just about the mental
But there are
stress.
people who have been known to be able to fake it for as long as possible until they get what they want. What about those people? I mean, I could do that too.
No, I'm talking about having a proper, I think a proper
You're
academic
saying
structure.
them.
It's not just about the academic credentials, even the team play, the strength. There are many case models that you can use to track people. If I escape one because I'm academically sound, I might not do too well with the others, the team play. All right, and I think it's something to look at. And reach the training model.
Final words, Mr. Chukuma?
Pardon? Final words for the new acting IGP.
Well, first, I'd love to congratulate him. And I think he just started out fine by first identifying the major problems confronting the force. And let's see that as a disease diagnosis is half solved. If he has the political will, let him show it.
Okay.
Freddie.
My final words would be: deliver a credible election that is free of violence and that is true, a reflection of the people. And you have a chance to build trust and confidence. And then you have another tenure that you can rule with Nigerians. This is his test, the elections. Let's see how that goes.
Okay. Well, we've been speaking with Freddie Adimefe. He's a candidate, Alliance for New Nigeria, running for the House of Representatives. And of course, Chukuma Okenwa, convener of Youth Decide. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for speaking.
Thanks for joining us.
So much.
Thanks for having us.
All right.
Okay. And of course, we wish the new Inspector General of Police all the best during his tenure. We'll take a break now, and when we come back, we'll be discussing the issue of political thuggery in the Nigeria political space. Stay.